And again, we're still on a bullish accumulation signal here. These signals have done an excellent job of marking the accumulation and distribution of Bitcoin. The distribution back up to the December high, but now at the January low, we have an accumulation signal, which again, we predicted a bounce off of that trend line. We got it, and that triggered this signal right here. I think eventually we go up to that upper channel line before all is said and done, and that's where I think we're going to end up seeing the Bitcoin top. Now, if you didn't watch my last video, I went through the Fibonacci extensions, I went through the Elliott wave counts, great length and detail, so go check that out. I just wanted to update you on the 4-hour chart of Bitcoin here, which I did earlier, showing you I might get those divergences on the RSI and the MACD in the 4-hour time frame, and we might get a bigger pullback to a Fibonacci retracement. We'll be watching. Regardless, whether we get a bigger one or that's it, Bitcoin, in my opinion, is going higher. I think this is a higher low. It will complete at some point here in the this week. Maybe it's done. Maybe a few more days to carve it out, but I think it will complete. Bitcoin will go higher. Please support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the charts, you like the indicators, let me know that by supporting the channel today. Thank you. I look at things far in advance, and I try to look at chart patterns and see what could be developing in channels and so forth. And again, I think you've got a possible head and shoulders pattern that's developing here if we go up and hit the upper channel line right here on Bitcoin. And again, I think it's very possible. Bitcoin has a history of forming these head and shoulders. It was the first 2021 and second 2021 peaks that both formed head and shoulder patterns. We had an inverse head and shoulders down here at the 2022 bottom. It was an inverse head and shoulders pattern. So again, I think we're doing it again. And I think that the whole consolidation over here for the bull flag was a left shoulder in all likelihood. I think we come up here, hit this level, get the head formation, and then I think we come back to this level and form a neckline, get a bounce, and then I think the bottom falls out of Bitcoin, and I think it will end up getting a bigger dump, which again, pricing in a recession that we're being told is not going to happen. I think it will happen. I believe the recession indicators, soft landing nonsense. Times we had supposed soft landings, which is a fairy tale, a myth. In the 80s and 90s, you didn't have the recession indicators flashing. You get the recession indicators flashing, and then you avoid a recession, then I'll believe your soft landing nonsense. The recession indicators are flashing. We are going to have a recession. Bitcoin will price that in. It's never been through a period where we've had a legitimate recession. A brief one in 2020, they threw everything but the kitchen sink at it. It's not going to happen again. Saying they won't have stimulus, but we're going to have a bear market and we're going to have a deeper recession, and the Fed's not going to be able to stop it. We don't know how Bitcoin will behave. I think it will behave by coming back and taking out this low. That's what I think is likely going to be the case. But again, this low will probably be the target, and we'll probably end up taking it out of the next major sell-off. I think you're going higher. I remain bullish on Bitcoin. My weekly signals remain bullish. Momentum's bearish in the daily time frame. Trend signals are still bullish. I think you're going up into this area here, and I think you're going to form this head and shoulders pattern. Now, maybe it's a slanted neckline rather than a horizontal one here. We'll see, but this is what I think is happening. When we get up there, everybody's going to be extremely bullish. They were at the 2021 top, just like they were over here at the March peak, just like that they were recently at our December peak that formed this little bull flag pattern, little one after this bigger one had formed. And again, I think it's a right shoulder. So everybody's going to be super bullish up here, and nobody's going to think that we'll possibly form a top at this trend line of resistance. Everything's pointing to this 120 to 125,000 area. That's where I think Bitcoin is headed. When we come into contact with that trend line, I think you're going to get a Bitcoin top. If we do get a bigger sell-off, I'll be watching VWAP support. VWAP support, horizontal support. Again, I told you I thought that was going to hold. We were going to bounce off of it. We nailed it in that trend line of support I talked about. I think that if we do get a bigger pullback, it's going to be in this area here with the VWAP support. And again, this continued a rectangle area of horizontal support. But I do think whenever this pullback is done, whether now or we go a little bit deeper, I think it will end up going higher above the resistance, above the January and the December high. But the VWAP support and horizontal support nailed the bottom. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful chart. With our bounce, a lot of signals are positive, hanging in there. We'll see if that remains the case, or do we get a deeper retracement. I'll be watching. If the selling's over, we got to be able to clear this area right here and resume and try to get above the January high there and resume the advance. So again, we'll be watching if the back test is done or we get a bigger one. My guess is we get a bigger one and get the divergences on the 4-hour chart. We'll see. Again, right here, again, trend signals bullish, but momentum flipping bearish. So again, does that give us a bigger sell-off or not? A bigger back test? We'll be watching. I do think the low here will hold. I'm just not sure if the back test is done yet. And again, it may get a deeper Fibonacci retracement, as you'll see in the video. Well, we're right at the bouncing off the cloud of support right here. If we take this level out just a little bit, we could still rebound and find support in this area and have that divergence in the 4-hour time frame. Certainly possible. But again, going to be looking for the rally to resume once the pullback is done. The jury is still out as to whether that is the case right now. So I'll be watching closely. Wanted to just show you some of the charts and that 4-hour possible divergence on the RSI there in the 4-hour chart there of Bitcoin. Hey, I just want to do a quick update on Bitcoin just real fast to let you know, again, the momentum signals remain bearish. They remain bearish. I think Bitcoin is in backtest mode. The trend signals are still bullish, but I think it's probably going to get a bigger pullback, possibly with the Fed tomorrow or later in the week with some other catalyst. We're going to get a very hawkish Fed concerned about inflation tomorrow when they should be concerned about the recession that they're telling us isn't going to happen. That is about to start in the not too distant future. But here you can see again, balance of power still in positive territory, but we have the momentum line bearish, little red arrow there, sell signal. So again, we're pulling back, we're back testing. Again, our signals gave us a warning that this was going to happen. But again, I do think we're in back test mode. I think this low is likely to hold. The narrative right now is, oh, we're going to now have a double top. Again, I think it's another fake pattern, the double top here that, we're being told that now we're going to have this double top. It's another fake pattern like the head and shoulders that's set up over here, again, which I told you I thought evolved into a bull flag. So again, I remain bullish on Bitcoin, but again, I predicted a pullback. It's now happening. Momentum has gone negative though, and again, trend signals are still bullish. Momentum has turned bearish. I think we're in backtest mode. Go watch my last video. I went through the Elliott wave count very thoroughly. So fast, I'm doing a Fibonacci extension here that I think, again, is going to give us a higher low and eventually take us up to channel line on the weekly chart, which I've talked about. And again, this possible Fibonacci extension, 0.786 extension towards the 125,000 area. I think that's very likely once we establish a higher low with our back test of the bull flag. So go watch the other video. I went through that in great length and detail. Link it at the end of this one. And signals just continue to nail the turns. I told you we were going to rally up into the trend lines I talked about. We did. Okay, then we turned down off of that with the gravestone doji right there. It was confirmed. We got a reversal. Weekly trend lines not seen on this chart. This is the daily chart. We sold off by nearly 16%. We had this bounce off support. I told you we were going to rally, and I told you if we set up a lower high, a lot of folks are going to say, oh, we're setting up a head and shoulders. I told you I thought it was a fake pattern. It ended up setting up, and then I told you to be watching. Do we get a higher low or do we get a lower low? And I told you if we got a lower low, this trend line is likely going to be tagged right here at key horizontal support from these lows back over here. We hit it right on the nose, called another bottom, called the top over here, called the bottom over here, predicted the rally ahead of the election, the week ahead of the election. We got it. We topped with election day. I told you we were going to get a pullback after a nearly 23% advance. The sell-off was about 18, just under 18%. The signals just continue to just nail it. I've been calling these turns over and over again because I have good indicators. So again, I don't think the back test is done. We did back test and we did hit our 50 period and we bounced. I don't think it's done. I think we're going to come down in this area a little bit more, maybe get a Fibonacci, deeper Fibonacci retracement. We did come just shy of our 61.8 Fibonacci here with this potential bottoming tail. I think that, again, it's still possible we come down. Not going to be wrong about that. Again, I have the guts to tell you exactly what I think. But I think there's more work to be done in all likelihood. I think the S&P, the same thing. I think we're getting an ABC move here. We'll be watching to see how it unfolds. Now, again, maybe it goes more like this, and comes down like that, or we're just getting the more feeble rebound and we continue to drop. Regardless how it plays out, again, I think we're back testing the bull flag just like the S&P, and I think we're going to bounce right here in this area, which we are doing. It may not be done yet, so we'll be watching to see how it unfolds. Then I think the advance will resume, and we'll go and we'll take out these levels up here, this resistance area up in here, and I think we'll move towards 115 to 117,000. That's the next level of resistance. Go watch my last video. You'll see that in the video. And then on that weekly chart with our linear scaling. And then I think we're going to eventually get back above that and go towards 120 to 125,000 area. Everything is playing out according to plan. And again, I am of the opinion that we had this ABC move to complete minor wave 4. And we've started minor wave 5, and we have our first couple of subwaves under construction here of that minor wave 5 that I think will eventually take us towards 120 to 125,000 area. Again, quickly, you can see the L8 wave count here. Again, I believe this is wave 4. I believe we're in minor wave 5. That was going to complete this 5-leg push higher for our intermediate waves. The lows off the 2023 low there, or the 2022 low, pardon me, and 1, 2, 3, 4. And this whole thing is intermediate wave 5. These 5 minor waves make that up. I think we'll hit the upper boundary, and then I think Bitcoin will likely top near the 120, 125,000 area. Whenever we come into contact with that trend line, we didn't reach it over many, many weeks of with the November and December rally. We fell short of it. I still think we're going to reach that upper channel line, and this just buys us a little bit more time for Bitcoin to reach that level. So I do think that we will still reach it, but then I think it will likely top at that level. Went through this in great length and detail more in my last update, and I showed you the weekly charts, the Fibonacci extensions and so forth. A lot of information there. Go watch that video if you didn't watch it. Good information about our objective target for Bitcoin. Eventually have to build the momentum to be able to clear the trend line from the 2021 low if we're going to reach that upper channel. So that's what we're watching. I think the dollar ends up getting a bigger pullback. This is a monthly time frame. I think the dollar gets a bigger pullback. I think that helps Bitcoin for the short term, but they both have been rising, and one of them is wrong. Either the dollar is wrong in its bullish breakout and new recent highs, or Bitcoin is wrong. One of them is wrong. They have a negative correlation. I think the dollar will get a bigger pullback, and then I think it ends up going here. And this is what happened when Bitcoin topped the last time around in 2021. Eventually, we broke out and we got back above the 50-month moving average, and we began to see eventually the surge on Bitcoin, or I'm sorry, on the dollar, that eventually gave us the Bitcoin sell-off. So again, I think that's going to be the next sell-off, or the next rally on the dollar is going to be towards this trend line right here. And I think that that will give us the next sell-off with Bitcoin. Right now, I still think it's going higher, likely towards 120 to 125,000. We'll be watching. Do we test the trend line again? Do we get another test of the upper boundary here, the rising trend line here? We'll be watching this with our linear scaling very closely. I predicted the bounce up this trend line, but in the rally, but I've also predicted that we'll pull back and back test, and we may test that trend line yet again. We'll see how it unfolds. Could be more work to be done. Our bullish diversions played out here. We talked about that at that trend line on the RSI and the MACD down here. We got it on the price oscillator also. We're in positive territory on the MACD, but it's rolling over. The price oscillator is doing the same thing. So there might be more work to be done here to confirm a higher low. We might get a bigger Fibonacci retracement. Now, Bitcoin is just starting the Wednesday session. The meeting, the Fed meeting is going to be on Wednesday, so we'll be watching that. We're just starting the Wednesday meeting. We're pretty much flat. We're up 0.13%. We were down for the Tuesday session. We were down by 0.78%. And again, we had that bigger sell-off to backtest the trend line there, and we bounced, and we ended up just slightly lower, but got a bottoming tail there. This may not be done. We might have more work to be done here. We came just shy of the 61.8 fib. Again, the 78.6 fib or the golden pocket might be reached right here. This golden pocket between the 61.8 fib and the 78.6 fib. I don't think we're taking this low out, but I think that we could end up getting more work in here to carve out a bottom or even rebound and then get a bigger dump into this area. We'll be watching, but like I said, eventually when this move is done, whether it's done with this low or we go a little bit lower, I think that Bitcoin will resume the advance. We have a bullish alignment of the moving averages. The 10 is back above the 50. The 20 is back above the 50. They're in a bullish arrangement. So again, this pullback, I think, is likely giving us a wave 2 for a higher low, a sub wave 2, and again, of that minor wave 5. I think we're going to get the wave 3, which is going to take us to new highs above this resistance area. And I think we'll form divergences on my indicators, like right here with momentum. I think we'll get a divergence much like what we had over here, much like what we had at this peak right here, and back over here at the top, the first 2021 peak, and that larger divergence also. I told you that could be the case here if we try to top at those trend lines, but I told you I didn't think so. I think we end up moving to this upper channel line right here near the 120 to 120,000 area whenever we reach it. The next resistance, though, before we get to that level, is the linear line at that 115,000 area or so, maybe as high as 117,000, depending on when we come in contact with it. But here, you're going to get another divergence. And also, right here, and again, we've had divergences mark tops and bottoms over and over again. And the tops in 2021, the bottom over here in 2022, tops and bottoms along the way for the short term. And recently, most recently, our bottom here, I think we're going to turn back up and end up forming another divergence with my indicators here in the weekly time frame. So that's what I think is likely going to be the case. So I think that we are going to go higher. We reached that level in the first quarter here. We certainly failed to reach it there in November and December. We were trying to come in and move towards it, but it was close but no cigar. With our January high a few days ago, again, trying to move up. I think eventually we will move up and reach this upper channel line. I think that's very, very likely. I wanted to show you that we have on the 4-hour chart, we have this low here on the RSI. And we could end up forming a divergence and coming back down deeper, as I said, to test the trend line or come back beyond the rising trend line, the black one that I've talked about in the daily time frame, or test this trend line and even overthrow it. That's certainly possible. But again, the head and shoulders pattern, I told you I thought it was a fake out pattern. I told you I thought it was evolving to a bull flag. That was correct. And then I told you again, I thought this bullish divergence was giving us a bottom here on the 4-hour chart. We formed a bearish divergence, and now we pulled back. Told you I was looking for a pullback on Bitcoin after topping tail with inauguration day, and we've now got it. Maybe it's done, possible. I'm open-minded to that, but it still may not be done. This could still be under construction, so we'll be watching. Do we get a bullish divergence that ends up developing here? Yeah, I think you still got a good shot that happens. S&P is doing the exact same thing Bitcoin is. They're both in backtest on their bull flags. Go watch my S&P video with S&P and the NASDAQ and the Dow and the Russell. I'll link it at the end of this video if you haven't seen it. Pretty interesting. Bitcoin and the S&P are doing the exact same thing. The 4-hour chart here, again, could drag out if we go lower a little bit, or it could be quick and swift, and we just come down here and maybe see, again, the RSI and the MACD just quickly form small divergences, and that's all she wrote. So again, we'll be watching. Do we have volatility with the Fed or some other catalyst with Bitcoin? Expect a hawkish Fed in all likelihood, because they are so concerned about inflation right now, and they should be concerned about the recession that is about to happen. When that recession hits, Bitcoin will likely go higher towards that 120 to 120,000 area. But the next stop, the next resistance level is 115 to 117,000. So we'll be watching, is the back test done or not? We do have the 50 up here back above the 200. That's good. But the 200, we're bouncing off it and back testing. That's good. But again, there might be more work to be done. The fact that the 50 is above the 200 causes me to believe this is corrective, and that will establish a higher low somewhere above the low here on the 13th. And that was the day we got that bottoming tail and that rally. We hit my trend line, and I told you I thought that was the bottom, hitting that trend line of support. I think that's been proven to be correct now. Appreciate parameter in positive territory. The bullish diversions formed on parameter. Told you about that. And again, as long as we're in positive territory, this is a pullback. So again, we might overthrow the 200, but not have the 50 drop back below it if we get a bigger pullback. We'll be watching to see how it unfolds. If it is done, the momentum signals need to turn back to bullish in the daily time frame. They are still bearish. As long as they're bearish, there's still risk of a bigger pullback. Once this is done, I think Bitcoin goes higher. Whether it's done right here or at a little bit lower levels, we'll be watching, but I do think again, it's still possible we get a larger Fibonacci retracement, so we'll be watching that closely. And remember, Bitcoin rose by 23% in just a few days. We get a continuation of the election rally, as I said, surrounding Inauguration Day, but I think we get a pullback first, and then we continue onward and upward. I'll go ahead and pull it up. Again, here's the weekly chart. Here's our trend line from 2017 with the 2021 peaks. If we go beyond that trend line, which we've stalled at now twice, if we can end up clearing it once the pullback is done, maybe it's done now, maybe we go a little higher, a little lower, but once it's done, I think we'll clear this trend line, the hurdle, and get to this next trend line, just connecting the 2021, the first 2021 peak and 2017 high. I think we'll reach that trend line. That could take us to the fib extension of 115,400 and some change, or again towards 117,000 if we take our time reaching that a little bit higher beyond that fib extension level. So again, just the next trend line of resistance I'm looking at about 115 to 117,000. If you can clear that and we blow right past it, then you've got the upper channel line in the weekly time frame, which I think is going to take Bitcoin to this upper channel line here.